She wouldn't let go of my hand, even when she was scared herself. The little girl said it so simply, so purely, the way only 4-year-olds can say the most important things, without knowing how important they are. She was sitting on the kitchen counter, legs swinging, watching the maid press a cold cloth to her own arm where the burn had raised an angry welt. The child's eyes were wide and still wet, but her voice had gone calm. Because she was safe. Because someone had made sure of it. Celine Marsh was 30 years old. She had worked in the Calloway household for 7 months. Quietly, efficiently, invisibly, the way good household staff are trained to be. She arrived at 7 each morning, tied her hair back, and moved through the large house on Greystone Lane like someone who had learned long ago that the best way to exist in someone else's space was to take up as little room as possible. She cleaned. She organized. She prepared meals that she left warming on the stove. And she watched over 4-year-old Piper Calloway with the steady, unhurried attention of someone who understood that small children need to be seen even when no one else is looking. Piper had her father's dark eyes and her late mother's habit of tilting her head when she was thinking. She talked constantly. To her stuffed rabbit, to the houseplants, to Celine, and Celine always listened, always answered, always treated each sentence like it mattered. Because to Piper it did. That Tuesday morning, Declan Calloway had left early. He was 33, the founder of a mid-sized logistics firm, and he carried the particular exhaustion of a man raising a child alone while also trying to hold a company together. He kissed Piper's forehead at 6:45, told her to be good, told Celine he'd be back by noon, and walked out into the gray morning looking like someone who hadn't slept through the night in 2 years. He hadn't. Not really. Not since the accident that had taken Piper's mother 18 months ago. The kitchen incident happened at 9:15. Celine had stepped into the laundry room for less than 3 minutes. Piper, curious and fearless the way 4-year-olds are, had climbed onto the step stool near the stove, the one Celine had moved twice and would now throw away entirely, and reached for the ceramic mug sitting on the back burner. The mug wasn't on a flame, but the burner beside it was warm, and when Piper's small hand knocked the mug sideways, the handle caught the edge of the kettle, and the kettle tipped. Celine came through the doorway at exactly that moment. She crossed the kitchen in 3 steps and pulled Piper back with one arm while catching the falling kettle with her other hand, bare. The water inside was not boiling, but it was hot enough to matter. She set the kettle down, set Piper down on the counter in one fluid motion, and stood very still for exactly 2 seconds, breathing. Then she looked at Piper's hands, checked her arms, checked her face. "Are you hurt anywhere?" Her voice was steady, unhurried, as though her own wrist wasn't burning. Piper shook her head. Her lip wobbled. "I wanted your tea." "I know," Celine said softly. "Next time you ask me and I'll pour it for you myself." "Okay. Okay." Piper looked at Celine's arm. "You're hurt." "A little," Celine said honestly. "But I'm okay." She pressed the cold cloth to it and didn't make a sound. And Piper watched her with those dark, serious eyes and said the thing she would later repeat to her father. "She wouldn't let go of my hand, even when she was scared herself." Declan came home at noon to find his daughter asleep on the couch and Celine at the kitchen table filling out an incident report, a habit she'd carried from a previous job at a childcare center, documenting everything, keeping records. The kettle had been moved to the high cabinet. The step stool was outside by the trash. He read the report in silence. Then he sat down across from her. "You should have called me," he said. Piper was calm within 10 minutes, Celine replied. There was nothing urgent left to report by phone. She wasn't hurt. A pause. "I wanted to make sure of that first." He looked at her wrist, wrapped neatly in gauze she'd found in the first aid kit. "How bad?" "First degree. It'll be fine in a few days." He was quiet for a long moment. Outside, the neighbor's sprinklers came on. Piper made a small sound in her sleep and settled again. Declan looked at his daughter's face, peaceful, soft, entirely unaware of how quickly a Tuesday morning could change, and something moved through his expression that he didn't try to hide. "Thank you," he said. It came out low, unpolished. The real kind. Celine nodded once. She began to close the folder. "Can I ask you something?" Declan said. She looked up. "You've worked here 7 months. You've never taken a sick day, never arrived late, never." He paused, looking for the right word. "You treat this house like it matters to you. Like Piper matters to you. And I've never asked why." Celine was still for a moment. Outside, a bird landed on the windowsill and left again. "I had a younger brother," she said quietly. "Growing up, our mother worked 2 jobs. I was the one who watched him after school, made sure he ate, made sure he was okay." She looked at her folded hands. "He grew up well. He's fine now. But I think I've just always known how to pay attention to small people. Because someone needed to." Declan didn't say anything for a moment. Then, "I didn't know that." "You didn't ask," she said. Not unkindly. Simply. He looked at her with the expression of a man recalibrating something. "I should have." The next morning, Declan arrived at his office and called his HR director before 9. He had been quietly preparing a company childcare and household staff benefits program for months, something he designed after his own experience of finding good, reliable childcare nearly impossible as a single parent. He'd been looking for someone to run the pilot program's family liaison division. Someone with childcare experience, documentation instincts, genuine attention to detail. Someone who understood, from the inside, what families actually needed. He offered the position to Celine by phone that afternoon. She was quiet for so long he thought the call had dropped. "Declan." Her voice was careful. "I'm a maid. You're a person who ran a crisis, filed a report, treated a wound, and put a traumatized 4-year-old back to sleep before noon," he said. "I've had managers who couldn't do half of that." A pause. "You don't have to decide now. Take the week." She took 3 days. When she called back, she said yes. And then she said something that stayed with him. "I just want to make sure Piper knows she can still ask me for tea." He laughed, a real one, the unpracticed kind. "She can." Every morning. Months later, on a quiet Saturday, Piper sat at the kitchen table drawing while Celine read nearby. The house was warm. The light was late afternoon gold. Piper looked up from her paper and said, without any particular reason, "Celine, are you happy?" Celine lowered her book, looked at the small, serious face watching her. "Yes," she said. "I think I really am." Piper nodded, satisfied, and went back to her drawing. 4 years old, and already she had asked the question most adults spend decades avoiding. The moral of this story doesn't need to be dressed up. Goodness lived quietly still changes everything. Celine never asked to be seen. She only chose again and again to show up, to pay attention, to protect, to care. And in doing so, she was seen completely. That is how kindness works. Not in grand declarations, but in cold cloths pressed to small burns and hands held through fear and incident reports written at kitchen tables by people who simply refused to stop caring. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. Let's spread more stories of kindness and hope together.